Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I wanted to talk about some popular young adult books that I haven't read yet, but I am planning on picking up. So if you've been following me for a while, you may know that I am actually fairly new to the young adult genre. I never really read it before. Young adult, the way that it is now, was not a thing when I was sort of the young adult age. It kind of had teenage fiction, but not really. It was this like tiny section of the kids' books. Obviously, young adult has really blown up over the past, I'd say, I don't know, 7 years or so, whenever Twilight came out. I think that was really when it picked up as a genre as a whole. So I have been reading adult fantasy and adult science fiction for a very long time. There's actually a point in time where that was pretty much all I was reading. There were a few things that I noticed, particularly with the fantasy genre, which I have read much, much more extensively than I have the science fiction genre. And that was, I noticed that it's a very male-dominated genre. I found that a lot of the most famous books are written by men, with a few exceptions. Obviously you have people like Robin Hobb who are writing, but it is a very male-dominated genre. And I wanted to branch out and read some stuff that was actually written by women, and I wanted to make this a bigger effort. And I noticed that in young adult, it's a lot of women writing. It was a lot of women writing. So I ended up picking up Alwyn Hamilton's Rebel of the Sands because not only is she a lady, it is also sort of a non-European setting. It's much more of a Middle Eastern setting, and I thought that that sounded really interesting. I picked it up, I loved it. I thought that it was I just thought it was so much fun. It was really fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. 2017 has kind of been the year of my young adult awakening, so to speak, as a reader, because I just haven't read much of it, and I knew some names from the young adult genre just because they're so popular, but there are a lot of books that I just have not read. So in order to remedy this, I actually have a whole stack of really popular young adult books that I have not read, but I am planning to. So first up is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. So I go into this with caution because I have actually read A Court of Thorns and Roses and I absolutely hated it. I really, really hated a lot that was going on in that book, and I am sure that there are a lot of people who will agree with me, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very enraged right now. I really, really struggled with a lot of the themes of the book. I struggled with the very near sexual assault by the person who's going to become the love interest inexplicably in later books. I really struggled with that book, and so I wasn't gonna read Throne of Glass at all. I know that lots of people love these books. I know lots of people love her, and I actually have a coworker who I like very, very much and whose book recommendations I usually very much trust, who really loves these books. So I thought that I'd give it a try. I know that they're very, very different from A Court of Thorns and Roses, so that's a good thing. So we'll see how this one goes. You might notice that this is actually a library book. I thought that I would pick it up from the library instead of investing the money and actually buying the book just in case I don't like it. If I do like it, I can just buy this. So next up is another book that I'm a little bit dubious about, and that is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I have never read any of these books, and I know that they are insanely popular, like insanely popular. Everyone seems to love these. So I know that these books are set in New York, which is where I used to live, so there will be a little bit of familiarity there, which is good. And I think they're kind of urban fantasy, werewolves and vampires. This series is called The Shadowhunter Chronicles. So I imagine it's about the people who hunt down these vampires and werewolves and whatnot. It's urban fantasy and sort of paranormal romance and stuff like that are not necessarily genres that I particularly like, but there have been books within those genres that I have absolutely loved. So we'll see how this one goes. This is the last one on the list that I'm kind of unsure if I'll actually like. I would have gotten this from the library too if I had a library card at the time that I bought this book. So next up we have a book that I'm actually really, really excited to read. I know that she's so beloved and I follow her on Twitter. She's had a lot of really great things to say. I know that it's silly to say that someone writes tweets very, very well, but she's very, very kind of smart and engaging on Twitter, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. And that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So as far as I know, she tends to lean toward magical realism, and I know that this is a series that is 4 books long. So it doesn't actually say much about this book on the back, but I have a couple of friends who absolutely adore this book and this series. It's about a girl named Blue, and it says, "This is the year she'll be drawn into the strange and sinister world of the Raven Boys. In the year, Blue will discover that magic does exist. So I am looking forward to this. Again, I know so little about it, but I know that people just absolutely love these books and they absolutely love her. I actually have her new book, All the Crooked Saints, on my shelf. I need to stop buying multiple books by authors, and I've actually never read them, but whatever. So next up we have one that I actually wasn't hugely keen on when I first bought it, but the more I see the author talk again on Twitter, the more intrigued I am by this. I'm really, really looking forward to this. That's The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. So I know that this deals with sort of an alternate version of London, and it's all about clairvoyance, and it just sounds really, really cool. If you go and look her up on Twitter, she has done a huge thread of all of the sort of inspirations for this series of books, and they're just so incredibly cool. And honestly, that has gotten me more excited about this than anything else. There's so much that she's pulled from history and from entomology that has inspired this book, and it just sounds really, really cool. So I think that of all of them, this is probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most. So next up, I've got another one that is so, so beloved, and the series is not quite finished yet, but the author is working on, I believe, the last book, and that is An Ember in the Ashes by Sava Tahir. I actually got this from the New York Public Library when I was still living there in hardcover and just never read it, so I've had a very near miss with this one. As far as I can tell, it feels very kind of Roman military-esque. So it's about a woman named Leia, and she's kind of left on her own. Her grandparents are killed and her brother is arrested for treason by the Empire, so she has to turn to the rebels, and the rebels make her basically become a spy. And it just looks really cool, and it looks like a good sort of military young adult fantasy, which I don't think you see very often. And also, you guys, it has a blurb from Brandon Sanderson on the back. He says that Tahir shows us light in the darkness, hope in a world of despair, and the human spirit reaching for greatness in difficult times, which is like everything that Brandon Sanderson's books are about, so I take that as a really, really good sign that I am going to love this. So last but not least, I feel like I have been living under a rock, because I sometimes think that I am the only person who has not read this book, and I've been meaning to for ages and ages and ages, and somehow it's just sat on my shelf. So I think this is going to be a priority for the rest of 2017, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So if you have been living under a rock, a bigger rock than me, and you don't know what this book is about, this is a book that everyone has been talking about. I'll just read the back for you guys in case you don't know what this one is about. So 16-year-old Star lives in two worlds: the poor neighborhood where she was born and raised and her posh high school in the suburbs. The uneasy balance between them is shattered when Star is the only witness to the fatal shooting of her unarmed best friend Khalil by a police officer. Now what Star says could destroy her community. It could also get her killed. This is supposed to be an absolutely incredible book. Everyone is loving it. So again, I need to read this. Feel like I've been living under a rock. I do genuinely feel like the only person who's not read The Hate You Give yet. So there you have 6 popular young adult books that I have not read yet, but I would like to read soon. So I'm slowly making my way into the young adult genre. If there are any books that you think that I need to read that you find really, really important, or were maybe important a few years ago but people don't talk about as much now, definitely let me know. And if you've read any of these books, then absolutely let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. So if you want to see more videos like this, then definitely subscribe, because I try to post at least once a week, twice if I can, and I will see you next time.